Things that don't matter in the cloud. Said no CEO ever. Are there any CEOs in the room? I know there are people who used to be CEOs. Obviously, they weren't qualified. They didn't keep their job. So, is everybody having a good time? I know it's a little bit late. I'm going to try and go quick. We're going to see if we can get you out of here by 9. And we'll see how that goes. But if you were having a good day and a good evening, then I might be here to ruin it for you. So we'll see how that goes. But let's go ahead and get started. Most importantly, when you're trolling me on the internet, please use this Twitter handle. This is how you can reach me. You can troll me in a screed if you choose. I will then publish your screed in 140 character chunks on Twitter myself for my own amusement, but we can have a good dialogue. That's a word that CEO types use. I obviously added my LinkedIn here because we're talking about CEOs and professional things, so if you want to reach out to me there, good luck. I work at Pivotal. I don't live here in London, but they let me fly here and meet people like you and give talks like this, and I'm pretty stoked about that, so this is my appreciation slide. This is me being appreciative. Moving right on, a little bit about me, just so that you know. I'm a principal technologist for Cloud Foundry at Pivotal, so I get to work on platforms and cool technologies and in awesome communities. You are all ostensibly a part of that community, so that's pretty fantastic. I am a former technical lead of application development, also a former technical lead of operations, we're going to be honest here. We should have an honest conversation. A former failed VP of engineering. We can talk about that over way more beer sometime. X10 companies you've never heard of. Don't worry about that. And then these are things that I like in emoji form. If you like these things, we should hang out. All right. Basically, I'm just like you. May the burning bridges light my path. And with that in mind, let's carry on. I want to try and convince us all to focus on the things that truly matter in our jobs, in our day-to-day lives, and to stop focusing on the things that don't matter, regardless of how much fun we think they are, despite the fact that they're basically somewhere between meaningless and useless. So this talk is definitely about high expectations. And I know what I did there, high cloud, ha ha ha, yeah. I could hear you all laughing. All right, so this is where we're at. We're in an organization, they want to go to the cloud, we've never gone to the cloud before, or we're starting a new company and we're like, the cloud's going to make us awesome instantaneously. So we have these greenfield projects, and all we have to do is create something to compete against billion-dollar companies with our tiny amount of dollars in our bank account and do it effectively. And it's super easy. No big deal. No big deal. Yeah, just deliver faster than anyone else and never make a mistake. Problem solved. I don't see what the problem is. By the way, like, no big deal. Worst 3 words in our existence right now when we say no big deal. Yeah, sure, no big deal. Good luck, cowboy. Yeah. You've definitely solved a problem before. No big deal. So, some of us are not in this situation. I would bet that most of us are not actually in this specific situation. I bet we're in this situation, which is brownfield projects, things that already exist, things that somebody's trying to call legacy in order to do a political power move, in order to get something to be moved into the cloud so they can take credit for it, get a big bonus, hopefully get a C-level position in the future. Anyone know anyone like that? So, these brownfield projects are interesting because you're working for a company that has something that we call legacy, which really makes all of your money. And what we want to do is just magically move it out to the cloud. It's going to be totally fine. No big deal. We can do that. And by the way, you're going to compete against companies that have a theoretical billion-dollar valuation that are lean and already using some badass technologies that you only wish you could use, but your security team is never going to let you. No big deal. And by the way, just deliver faster than anyone else. Don't make any mistakes. So, this is often where we find ourselves. And then this is what we say. Awesome. Yeah, I bet we could do that migration in about 6 weeks. No big deal. Dolphin for fun. Yay. Hey, look, I already built a container. I'm like 2/3 of the way there. Woo, party time. Ta-da. Yeah, so this is what we say. I've heard this before. I have made mistakes in my career. I have done things like this before. I got super excited over the weekend whenever I built a container, and I thought I had a large-scale, enterprise-grade architecture plan. Here's the thing about doing that, though. Nobody cares about your container. Nobody who is important cares about your container. This is real advice from a friend of mine who went through a PhD program. By the way, it was very helpful advice for him. He did get his PhD. His advisor said to him when he was completely stressing out about preparing for a particular presentation, he told She told him the definite truth. No one cares, not even the people in the room. They're there because they have to be there, but they don't actually give a shit about this. So, we said we could do it. We could do it in 6 weeks. 6 months later, what's our status? What have we shipped? Oh, wait, okay, that's slide 15. You can see 16, 17. This is embarrassing. I appreciate the progress that you've made so far, despite never producing anything of value. Nothing I can sell, nothing our customers can use or like. No CEO ever would say that. This is what an actual CEO would say. Very similar to the Bobs in Office Space. They would sit you down and say, so what would you say you do here? You know? So now we have to have this conversation where we have to figure out what it is we thought we did. By the way, we're really proud of all the progress we've made on all of the infrastructure and the preparation that we've done in order to deliver amazing applications. So we spent a few weeks picking a Linux distribution. You see, we had some very specific constraints. We had some very specific ideas about security and packaging. And although we're delivering microservices that run in the JVM, and they're just business applications, and they connect to backend services and storage in a pretty standard way, it was really important to us to lock down a very specific flavor of Linux because it's the best flavor of Linux. Good job. Good job picking that Linux distribution. Really proud of you. Our customers are going to love that. No CEO would ever say that to you. They don't care. And you shouldn't care. Why would you care? Is it important to have a quality Linux distribution that is reasonably modern, provides you the tools that you need in order to have the automations that you need? Absolutely, yes it is. Should you be focusing on doing that yourself? Is that really your job? And this is going to be my theme for the night. Is that what you're supposed to be the best in the world at? Then we spent a few weeks, what does it say? Automating security and package updates, because that's super critical. And whenever another heartbeat bleed comes out, we do definitely have to have updates to our security. We have to be able to do it in an automated way. So we built this big CI pipeline in order to make that happen. We're really happy about it. And yeah, sure, we rolled it on our own, but we're security experts. So that's what we're doing. Yeah, good job patching the kernel. Really excited every time you do that. We spent a few weeks figuring out the load balancer. See, we've never really had high availability before, and we've never had a load balancer that we actually know how to configure programmatically, let alone do it without any downtime. But we've heard about some cool technologies. We became varnish experts for no goddamn reason. Yeah, excellent DNS entries. You know what? Your TTLs are the best TTLs. I run dig on our domains. I just can go to sleep happy at night. Thank you so much. Said no CEO ever. These are the small petty things that we end up caring about because they're the problems that we see. They're the problems that plague us. And they're the problems that plague us because we have enough experience in our careers to know that these can be issues and that if we don't look at them, I bet they will be issues. And they will be issues because we're not using technologies that already solve them for us. Or we have experience that doesn't match having used technologies that would already do this for us. So we think this is important. Yeah, outstanding high availability strategy. Guess what? Your CEO wants your shit to stay up and stay online and be highly available. He does not actually care how you did that. And he certainly doesn't want you to have personally made that happen when he knows, thanks to Harvard Business Review, the hacker news of the executive class, he knows that he can just buy something to make that shit happen, and then you can walk out the door as redundant. We also spent a couple of weeks negotiating database access with DBAs. Don't ever fucking say that to me again. Just literally never say that. I don't know how this actual CEO code got in here, but seriously. Why is it that we're having horizontal LAN wars between layers in our stack in this day and age, where we have to spend weeks negotiating a strategy for getting access to the things that we need in order to do our jobs, right? This is something that is an automated solved problem, and we should not have human beings trying to do this for us. Yeah, well done manually generating those secrets. Yeah, This is something that kind of blows my mind. I give a talk about platforms generally, a little bit more hands-on, and I'm pretty emphatic about the idea that after you hear me speak, you should never let anyone personally generate a password for you in your production environment ever again. If you want to know what the weak link is in your architecture, it's the human beings, because humans suck at keeping secrets. Why would you ever allow a human to know a secret? Just never let a human know a secret. Never do that. So when you're negotiating these types of accesses and you're doing it manually and you have to send a ticket to somebody in order to get a password sent back and email, it's totally unencrypted, and then you copy and paste it into your source code and commit that to revision control. What are we doing? Even better than that, and this is where your CEO is going to get really upset, is that you recognize that that's a problem and then you build a custom solution to handle secrets and message passing in between teams. Yeah, good job. Said no CEO ever. Then we spent a few weeks building a build pipeline to generate these golden images, because we want to have repeatable builds, we want to have consistent environments for our applications to run, we want to know what we're running, all good stuff. Thanks for doing that on your own. Yeah, good job automating the automation so our automation is automated. Like, yo dog, don't do that. We spent a few weeks picking container scheduler. Anyone else? Definitely done that. I've definitely done that. Come on, we can be honest with each other. And we still don't know quite how it works, but we did definitely throw it into production because we were super excited. We got a few containers up and running, so we just went ahead and launched that stuff. This never happens. And this is like the real hot sauce right now, right? Like, this is what everyone's super excited about. You will never get a high five from a responsible CEO for having built and run your application in containers. No one cares about your containers. Your CEO definitely doesn't care. Your user base definitely doesn't care. Your salespeople don't care. Your customer support people don't care. The people who actually matter, they don't care. That doesn't matter. Why are you trying to be the best in the world at that? Then we spent a week creating a runbook because we had to figure out how to deploy this thing. We're not quite sure how to deploy it manually, or automatically, so we did build like a manual runbook. It's a 100-point checklist. I got some handcuffs and we just shackle people to the desk every time we want to do a deployment until it's completed. It breaks differently every time. But you know, we got a week to get it to that spot. Good job. Yeah, nice work deploying software. Is it important for us to deploy software? Yeah. Does anyone actually care about deployments, though? No. They care about functionality going out the door. They care about growing your business value. They care about you delivering things that actually solve problems, make your users happy so they give you more money so you stay alive, right? That's what they care about. Deployments are important, and they should be regular and hopefully continuous. But they should not be something that you focus a great heavy deal of effort on. I think the talk that we had about Concourse really proved that it is entirely possible to have a very stable deployment strategy that you don't spend your nights and days on and waste a lot of time and effort. All right, we're getting close. Yeah, we spent a couple of weeks setting up log analytics. Like, it was really important to us to get actionable intelligence out of our system. So we had all these, virtual machines and all these containers everywhere. They were spewing logs all over the file system. We had to come up with a strategy to get that stuff into a common solution. We definitely spent some time becoming experts at, Elasticsearch so we could get the Elastic Stack up and running. I don't know why we did that. We don't really understand how that works either. We definitely put it in production. Nicely done. Logging infrastructure. Again, like, this just doesn't actually matter. It doesn't truly matter. Isn't it the focus of what we're supposed to be the best in the world at? Getting close. Finally, we created monitoring and alerting systems. Now that we had this actionable data, when things broke in the middle of the night, we had to know so someone could wake up at 3 a.m. and turn a computer back on, or rebuild a virtual machine from memory. Human memory. Yeah, glad you built that monitoring system. Good job. I'm glad you didn't let me pay $5 a month to some, really trusted vendor to just do this for us automatically that we could have integrated with. I'm glad you did that by yourself. I'm glad we now have a Nagios deployment to manage. Good job. I'm usually not this pessimistic, or maybe it's realistic, I don't know. We designed and started to build this incredibly sophisticated system for running our software. Spent 6 months on it, if we're lucky, and our CEO doesn't seem to care. This is so depressing. This is so depressing. It's my life's work. This is my piece de resistance. This is what's going on the top of my resume. This is the thing I'm going to get that next, architect job from for having done this. And nobody actually cares. Nobody thinks it has any value. Well, why? Why? Well, I think we lose track of what matters. I suspect that some of us in the room are culprits of this, including myself. I've done it in my career. That's why I know this so well. It's because I've fucked up this way. But we get excited about solving these really low-level problems, and it goes back to what I said before. We know these problems. They have hurt us before. They have burned us. They have cut us. We have bled for them. We have sweat for them. Like, these are the things that we have had to deal with because they have gotten in our way, and they have tripped us up. And we want to solve our problems, because once we solve our problems, the world will be a better place. And unfortunately, that's fairly selfish, and your users don't care about your problems. That's not really what you're there to do. But we want to get really good at this stuff because these are the things we know. These are the things that when we go to the pub with our friends who have the same problems as we have, and we say that we solved this cool problem that we all have around this table, everyone buys you around because it's like really great. But it's not really great. It's a big waste of time, money, and effort. It's resume-driven development, which is a term coined by my esteemed colleague, Bridget Krumhout. And I don't think that she nor anyone else have officially attempted to define this concept, except for talking about it at events like this and sort of making fun of ourselves and maybe a few others in the process. But I'm going to give it a shot. I have two definitions. If you have something else, I'd love to hear about it. Definition number one is using tech that you read about on Hacker News that gets you super excited because everyone else is talking about it, and you just want to use it. So you cram it into your application, you deploy it to production. And you hope that it solves problems. And it creates fewer problems than it solves. Then there's piggybacking on that is deploying something to production even though you don't know how it works, but based on a blog post that seemed to suggest it would solve your problems. We do this a ton. We pick something that's really, really new, that seems like it solves all of our problems, and we try and take advantage of that without understanding any of the drawbacks, and without actually understanding it within the context of the problem domains that we have. And we deploy it to production because we just think it's going to be all right. Not to pick on anybody in particular, but it was made by an enormous search company who does everything really great, so it's just going to automatically be great. Right? These are the sorts of things we do. These are the decisions we make. My other esteemed colleague, Andrew Schaefer, calls this, what does he call it? It's tribalism and fashion are the ways that we make technology decisions, and I think that rings true. This resume-driven development thing definitely happens. We want to put it on our resume because when we go to that next job interview, everyone's going to be super interested. Like, we're going to be so cool because we used this cool new tiny technology that, by the way, no one's actually using in production because we don't know how it works. But you do. You do. So this is undifferentiated heavy lifting, solving these lower level problems. We have these tools, processes, and systems that don't really improve the position of our company regarding our unique business value, the thing that we're supposed to be the best in the world at, the thing that we're supposed to focus the bulk of our time and attention and energy on. And these are the things that don't actually matter to us in our context. The things that do matter are these unique business value things, these tools and systems and processes which do improve our value, the things that make our company better, make us better at solving problems, make us better at taking away other people's pain, the people that we're here to actually try and make their lives better. Not just ours, maybe not even ours, but theirs. This is actually what matters. This is what drives real value, and what really makes things interesting for your organizations is that you can actually move forward and compete. So, what is unique business value? Well, it's your actual code, your actual business processes. Now, if we use the common metaphor of an iceberg to describe your overall architecture, the tiny little bit that sticks up out of the water is your unique business value. Now, what's interesting about an iceberg is that there's a huge amount of structure underneath in order to keep that stable and above the water. That tiny little bit that you see is supported by an enormous piece of ice under the water that you don't really see. And when it comes to like taking a picture of an iceberg on a boat or something, it doesn't really matter. But your actual code does matter. The rest of it is undifferentiated heavy lifting, and it doesn't matter. Why would we focus on trying to be great at that? Like, it makes us feel good, but it doesn't actually solve problems. So, some examples of undifferentiated heavy lifting. And I'm going to use examples that are all open source. And actually, most of them are Linux Foundation projects, so that's pretty rad. But there are a collection of undifferentiated heavy lifting technologies, these lower level primitives that we all depend on in our jobs. And most of them by now, we've all decided that we don't want to do, we don't want to replicate, and we don't want to try and be great at. We have data planes, We've got network controllers, carrier networking, network management, and orchestration, virtual machines. These are things that we have agreed, I think by now, for most of our business problems, that we don't need to be the best in the world at. And most of our IaaS providers at a base level provide this for us, right? These are things that we're willing to let other folks do for us. We don't necessarily have to be the best in the world at. But after this, it starts to get a little hairy, and we still have problems. Because there's more undifferentiated heavy lifting than just these lower level primitives. Because then we have operating systems, where we try and be great at configuring and managing operating systems. And unless you're Google building their own operating system because they actually have challenges related to that given their scale and their distribution, you don't need to be doing this. Then we have containers, where we're trying to be the best in the world at that. The OCI is a great foundation that provides a runtime environment and a specification for running containers. They're pretty good at that. There are people who are definitely supposed to be the best in the world at it that are working on it, but maybe that doesn't have to be you. Then we have things like workload distribution and workload management. The Cloud Native Computing Foundation is where the IP for Kubernetes is. Kubernetes as a low-level container scheduler is pretty fantastic. And that's something that other people can do. I have definitely tried to go without this layer before and deployed about 1,000 instance Docker container distribution across some virtual machines for a web security company without things like Kubernetes because we were afraid of security implications of technologies we didn't understand, which frankly is kind of reasonable. But then we ended up with this completely unmaintainable, unmanageable mess. We became very good at distributing and managing containers, but we became very poor at delivering security solutions. Right? So we definitely did not focus on being the best in the world at what we were supposed to be the best in the world at. We have application platforms. We talked a lot about that here today, so hopefully you know something about that by now. We can get all the way up into programming frameworks. Why build your own framework when there are things like Node and Spring and Rails and just anything almost out there that actually is pretty fantastic. There are tons of them. You don't have to build them on your own. And then on top of all of this, we have your core business value, the thing that actually matters, the thing you're supposed to be the best in the world at. But what's interesting is that we've kind of accepted frameworks. We've even maybe accepted platforms, not quite in the large, but close enough. But then we've got these things in the middle that people are still screwing around with. And I don't understand why. Because your CEO doesn't care and your users don't care, and it's a big distraction from being the best in the world at what you're supposed to deliver to solve other people's problems. So I would like to urge us to focus on what truly matters, to stop trying to be the best in the world at things that other people are better at because it's their job. For instance, here at Pivotal, the company I work, we are supposed to be the best in the world at some of those layers because we provide solutions for those, and we do a pretty damn good job. But there are other companies that do the same. But if you are working at a bank or a nonprofit or the government, don't try and be the best in the world at container scheduling. Right? Use these technologies, leverage them. Like add the expertise of the hundreds of engineers that work on that stuff day in and day out to your team by using their technologies that are proven instead of doing it on your own. I think it's pretty rad. I can tell you that you can't afford to try and own the whole stack. You can't compete effectively by doing that. It's far too costly, and it's a huge distraction from your core business value. So your CEO just cares about the code, the unique business value. In fact, actually, let's back up a little bit. If we want to talk about like the recent serverless movement, we can kind of combine things like platforms and programming frameworks together. And what we realize is that we are really just focusing on the code and delivering that into a system that just works to run it, execute it, provide it as an event-driven data processing model or whatever it is you want to do. And I think that it's still very early days, but I think the serverless movement is a sort of a wake-up call or a signal for us to realize that it really is possible and even important to focus just on the core business value, the actual code that we deliver that is unique, that solves specific problems for the user. So this is what the CEO really cares about, which is increasing velocity and decreasing risk. And if you try and build the entire stack or decent portions of the stack, rather than leveraging open source or otherwise tools that work fantastically for things that you don't have to be amazing at, then you're going to have a hard time effectively increasing velocity and reducing risk. And when we talk about risk, we can talk about the spectrum of risk. Some people are worried about the risk of depending too much on others, and they're going to let you down, and then you're going to be stuck, and that is a real risk. It's a real risk to build an entire business on top of tools that are unstable, or communities that are unstable, or that become unstable. That can happen, become unhealthy. And that's a risk because that could potentially slow you down in the future or get you stuck, right? But on the other hand, and I think we forget this sometimes as technologists, there's the risk of not competing effectively enough in your market and just dying. I don't think we think about that quite enough. We have to find a decent middle ground. But I think I would err on not reinventing lower level technologies when we could leverage them in order to deliver solutions very quickly and compete. So this is what I want to hear from a CEO. Good job adding value to the organization. Like truly adding demonstrable value, things we can sell, things that really solve problems, things that make people's lives better. This is what I would want to hear. And I don't think you're going to get that just from doing a better configuration management or something. I think you could get that by being the best in the world at what you're supposed to be the best in the world at, and avoiding the distraction of everything else. So we can be friends, hopefully. I don't know, maybe I made all y'all upset. It's possible. But you can tell me about it on Twitter, or we can talk about it over a beer. But at this point, it is 9:01. I think I was pretty close to keeping my promise, and I'm going to let y'all go. Thank you so much.